Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. The White House is blocking another ambassador from testifying in the impeachment inquiry. Adam Schiff is calling it obstruction of Congress, while White House Republicans say the White House has good cause. Immigration to the southwest border continues to decrease. CBP is crediting the Trump administration and other countries, but the CBP chief says the numbers are still not manageable. And in San Francisco, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has a Republican challenger. Find out what values her challenger is running on. And the NBA's commissioner saying he won't censor players or team owners over China. Despite China threatening to cancel broadcasts of the games, the commissioner says some things are more important than money. The White House has blocked another ambassador from testifying in the ongoing impeachment inquiry. House Republicans say the move was prompted by House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff's refusal to release a full transcript of another ambassador's testimony.
Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and 3 GOP colleagues held a press conference after the Trump administration blocked the ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, from testifying on Tuesday.
We wish he would have been able to testify too, but we fully understand why the administration made the decision they did. When you're going to have a chairman release certain parts of what was said in a closed-door interview and not release the entire transcript and give it context, you can see why they didn't want to subject Ambassador Sondland to the same kind of treatment.
Former envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, testified last week. His full testimony has not been released, though a copy of his prepared remarks was leaked. An anonymous whistleblower who lacked first-hand knowledge filed a complaint accusing Trump of a quid pro quo exchange during a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The transcript of the call showed Trump urged Zelensky to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden's dealings with an energy company that appointed his son Hunter to its board. On the call, Trump didn't promise anything in return for the investigation.
And frankly, I think the American people have a right to know who this whistleblower is. If we're talking about the impeachment of the President of the United States, I think that's important.
House Intel Chairman Adam Schiff says a failure to produce the witness will be considered evidence of obstruction of Congress. House Democrats have now issued a subpoena to Ambassador Sondland to testify.
And Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, said today he wouldn't testify or produce documents for the impeachment investigation. The only way he would, he says, is if Adam Schiff is removed as chairman and the full House votes to authorize the inquiry. And in Minneapolis, officers in blue have been barred from wearing their uniforms at political events, hours after the Trump campaign announced its next rally in the city. But officers found a way around the ban. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more.
Hours after the Trump administration announced a rally in Minneapolis, the police chief issued a change in policy. Off-duty officers cannot wear their uniforms at political events. Chief Medaria Arredondo said last week that the change, supported by the Democratic mayor, is to keep law enforcement apolitical. President Trump thinks otherwise, writing on Twitter that the police are fighting the radical left mayor and his ridiculous uniform ban. He thanked Lieutenant Bob Kroll, the head of the Minneapolis Police Union, for supporting him, all while obeying the policy change by making Cops for Trump t-shirts. With these shirts, officers will be able to show who they endorse as law enforcement, which Kroll believes is the union's right. And Mayor Jacob Frey responded to the president's tweet alleging that the mayor is hurting officers. Yawn. Welcome to Minneapolis, where we pay our bills, we govern with integrity, and we love all of our neighbors. The Trump campaign has also accused the mayor of pressuring the stadium to cancel the rally by having the venue pay a bogus bill of security worth over $500,000. President Trump lost the state of Minnesota by almost a 2% margin. The rally is set for this Thursday. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
Immigration to the southwest border went down again last month, but it's still pushed this fiscal year past a record nearly 1 million migrants, more than double each of the past 5 fiscal years.
The number of people who showed up at the border with Mexico last month fell to 65,000. That's the lowest it's been since January and the 4th straight month it's decreased. Customs and Border Protection Chief Mark Morgan credits other countries for helping bring the numbers down.
President Trump has worked to have other countries in the regions, like Mexico and the Northern Triangle countries, to join us as true partners, to come together to address this as a regional crisis that it is.
He credited Mexico's enforcement of its southern border and the Remain in Mexico policy, which allows the U.S. to send migrants to Mexico while their asylum claims in the U.S. are processed.
The cooperation and partnership we have with Mexico right now really is one for the history books. It really is.
At the height of the crisis in May, there were about 5,000 people coming to the border each day. Morgan says it's now down to 1,700. Despite the decrease, he says it's still unsustainably high.
Jay Johnson, I'll bring that up again, he said 1,000 was a bad day. So, if we could start getting that down to the 500 range out there, but that becomes manageable.
He said the administration has built 71 miles of wall and is on track to build 450 miles by the end of 2020. That, he said, will help Border Patrol and other law enforcement agencies stop drugs and criminals from entering the country.
The wall gives CBP the opportunity to more effectively detect and prevent drugs from entering our country and killing our citizens.
While actions by the Trump administration and other countries have helped, Morgan said Congress still needs to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders is back in Vermont addressing his health.
In the last month or two, just was more fatigued than I usually have been. So. And I should have listened to those symptoms.
Bernie Sanders was recently hospitalized for a heart attack. His campaign said the 78-year-old senator would take a few days to rest before continuing on the campaign trail. Sanders is one of 3 Democratic presidential candidates over 70 years old. The medical emergency will likely raise questions about his fitness for office. Sanders is currently polling at 3rd in most polls. He's behind former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. And a Republican running against Nancy Pelosi says she aims to bring patriotism back to the country. NTD's Eileen Eng followed her cleanup brigade through the streets of San Francisco.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Deanna Lorraine is running for Congress against Nancy Pelosi. Her campaign slogan, God, family, and country. Values, she says, America has been missing for a long time.
We need better morals, we need family structure, strong families, because strong families create a strong America, and we need to bring back patriotism.
Starting in San Francisco, she organized the City Day of Action by inviting all kinds of people to clean up the streets.
It really starts with us. We could wait till leadership, till government steps in and fixes the problem for us. So we don't want to wait for people. We want to just organize a group of people and do it ourselves, and that's what I'm doing today.
She and her group of volunteers met up at City Hall and cleaned their way through the Tenderloin District, a neighborhood known for especially dirty streets.
What have you been finding?
So far, definitely the majority of things that I picked up are cigarette butts.
Yeah.
Already, but we literally just started walking 2 minutes ago.
They made a pit stop to clean up an area littered with trash.
Lorraine and her team are here to clean up the space. It's a parking lot that's in between a residence and a veterans building. It's called the Fairfox Hotel. And the residence building is a side that has been throwing out trash in the middle of the parking lot.
They found plastic scraps, bottles, cans, and even needles in that area. After about half an hour, the results show their accomplishment.
I love San Francisco!
The general election is on November 5th this year, and the presidential primary election is on March 3rd, 2020. Eileen Ing, NTD News, San Francisco.
Not a clean city!
Following the first vaping death in New York and amid growing regulations, Walgreens announcing today that it will no longer sell e-cigarettes. The retail pharmacy chain announced it will stop selling the products amid developing regulations in a number of states. The laws come as governments struggle with how to regulate vape products after several deaths have been blamed on them. Walmart made a similar announcement last month. Walgreens will continue to sell cigarettes. And the creators of the adult animation sitcom South Park have issued an apology mocking China after certain episodes of the cartoon were banned on Chinese websites.
Its recent episode, banned in China, released on October 2nd, questioned China's policy on free speech. It also highlighted efforts in Hollywood to tailor film and television content to satisfy Chinese censors.
I can't do it anymore, you guys. I can't even think with the Chinese government censoring everything I write.
The episode is either not listed or does not play on several popular Chinese video streaming sites and movie rating sites. In their official apology, the creators wrote, "Like the NBA, we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes. We too love money more than freedom and democracy." They were referring to Houston Rockets coach Daryl Morey, who backed Hong Kong protesters last week, only to backtrack after opposition from Chinese NBA sponsors and state broadcasters. The series, which has been running for more than 20 years, has won 5 Primetime Emmy Awards and a Peabody Award.
The commissioner of the NBA said today that the league won't censor players or team owners. He says the league is motivated by more than money and freedom of expression must be protected.
Commissioner Adam Silver defended Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey for expressing his opinions about the protests in Hong Kong.
The long-held values of the NBA are to support freedom of expression, and certainly freedom of expression by members of the NBA community. And in this case, Daryl Morey, as the general manager of the Houston Rockets, enjoys that right as one of our employees.
He tweeted in support of the protests, then later deleted the tweet and apologized to fans and sponsors in China. The threat to the league's business grew on Tuesday when China's Central Television said it would not broadcast preseason games played in China. This includes a game between the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Lakers scheduled for later this week in Shanghai. The league has worked for years to cultivate the Chinese market and regularly plays exhibition games there. The NBA initially tried to distance itself from Morey's comments. It expressed regret for offending friends and fans in China while saying Morey had the right to free expression. That angered both sides. The league was criticized by some fans and U.S. politicians for appearing to compromise on its principles, and condemned by others in China for offending national sensibilities.
The NBA is supposed to be so woke. I mean, they're so sensitive to everybody else's rights.
Exactly.
Right. They're so woke. They're the most woke of all sports industries in America. And it was humiliating what they did. And I think there ought to be severe ramifications. I think we ought to start looking at a whole host of things.
Bannon predicted history will judge the NBA harshly.
The U.S. State Department announced visa restrictions today on Chinese officials involved in repression in China's Xinjiang province. The new restrictions apply to government or Communist Party officials and even their families. The officials have to have either been complicit in or aided the detention or abuse of ethnic minorities or Muslims. The State Department accused Beijing of targeting Uyghurs, ethnic Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and other members of Muslim minority groups in Xinjiang. It says Beijing has used mass detentions, high-tech surveillance, and control of cultural and religious expression in its repression campaign. And up next, Germany worried about a repeat of the 2015 EU migration crisis. Amid an increase in migrants, officials calling for a permanent solution. Find out more on that after the break.
Extremely gutsy. The Chinese Communist Party is not known for taking criticism very well.
The police have walked off the streets and been firing tear gas and beanbag rounds at the protesters, and they've made several arrests.
警方呢是一直进行了一些推进，并且呢是多次举起黑旗和橙旗呢，去发射了很多的催泪弹。
即係佢哋放催淚彈嗰時，嘭咁撞到個肚㗎。咁咧就我而家翻轉頭咧見到個咁嘅嘢，因為嗰時兵荒馬亂咧，我就。
That's the media liaison. They're telling us that we need to get out of here. They're telling the press to leave.
Boy, this tear gas is getting pretty strong.
lasting beauty of traditional oil painting, realistic style, brilliant, moving, expressive. 2019 NTD Television International Competition for Figure Painting in Oil, guided by truthfulness, kindness, and beauty. We invite you to join us on our journey back to traditional art. Gold Prize award of $10,000. For more detail, please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Germany warned today of a repeat of the chaotic influx of migrants that caused the European Union unprepared in 2015, with Greece and Cyprus sounding alarms over a resurgence of arrivals from neighbouring Turkey.
Speaking ahead of an EU ministers' meeting on migration, German Interior Minister Horst Seehofer said the lack of a common European asylum policy could lead migration to be uncontrollable throughout Europe. And if there's no common European asylum policy, there is a danger that uncontrolled immigration will once again take place throughout Europe. We have seen this before, and I do not want it to happen again. The comment came as Greece has again become the main gateway to Europe for people from the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, with UN data showing nearly 45,600 arrivals by sea so far this year. Rescue boats have repeatedly been stranded in the sea for weeks this summer as EU states quarreled over who should host those on board. EU Migration Commissioner Dimitris Avramopoulos said a permanent solution was needed. The bloc is wary of any recurrence of the 2015 crisis that strained social and security services and sowed divisions among EU states. EU leaders will discuss Turkey at a summit in Brussels on October 17 to 18. Several diplomatic sources said the bloc would consider raising more funds for refugees in Turkey.
French President Emmanuel Macron today paid homage to 4 employees of the Paris police force who were killed in a knife attack at police headquarters last week. NTD's David Vives has the story.
The assailant, Michael Harpone, 45, was an IT worker at the headquarters. He killed 3 police officers and an administrative worker with a knife before being shot dead by police. Prosecutors say initial investigations reveal the attacker converted to Islam and had contact with individuals likely belonging to an Islamist Salafi movement. The 45-year-old was born in the French-owned Caribbean island of Martinique. Macron said France must develop a society of vigilance in its fight against Islamist militancy.
Faisons bloc, sans relâche.
Let's gather together relentlessly against Islamism, against this deadly ideology which does not recognize the law or our right or our way of life.
This unprecedented attack continues to raise question and criticism against the French Minister of Interior, Christophe Castanet, who will face questioning today by a Parliament Intelligence Commission.
One of the missions of the intelligence service where Harpone worked was to identify terrorists. According to prosecutors, Michael Harpone showed several signs of being radicalized, including approving of recent terrorists' acts. But his colleagues never raised alarm about it. Castaner said there is dysfunction in the police administration. According to syndicate union spokesperson Eric Roman, radicalized employees are very difficult to identify. The administration that managed the development of policemen careers don't facilitate the signaling of radicalized employees. If a policeman talks about a colleague's suspicious behavior, he can bring trouble on himself and his own career. Investigation into the case continues and police are still looking for possible accomplices.
Ireland's finance minister today said that if the UK succumbs to a no-deal Brexit and crashes out of the European Union, its government will run a budget deficit next year to protect businesses.
And in the event of a no deal, we will intervene in a sustained and meaningful way to support jobs and our economy. We stand ready to act.
Irish Finance Minister Paschal Donohoe said the country will run a deficit of 0.6% of its gross domestic product to fund a €1.2 billion package for affected firms.
Our central economic scenario is for a no-deal Brexit. This means we must increase again the level and range of supports to ensure that our economy is protected.
With just 23 days before the United Kingdom is due to leave the bloc, The future of Brexit remains deeply uncertain. Both London and Brussels are positioning themselves to avoid blame for either a delay or a disorderly no-deal Brexit.
Up next, US women's gymnastics picking up their 5th consecutive world title. As one of the most decorated women in the event's history, Simone Biles could rewrite history. Find out what signature moves are being named after her. That and more after the break.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
US women's gymnastics picked up their 5th consecutive world title at the World Championships in Stuttgart today. US gymnast Simone Biles is now the event's most decorated woman. The Americans hardly made a mistake, with Biles helping them to score an almost 6 points more than Russia, which took second. Biles performed the double-double dismount off the balance beam and the triple-double on the floor exercise, which will now be called the Biles and the Biles 2, respectively. 22-year-old Biles owns 20 world medals, including 14 golds. She could end the championships as the most decorated athlete in the competition's history. The most decorated gymnast has 23 medals. Italy took 3rd spot for its first world team medal since 1950, while China slipped off the podium for the first time since 2003. And an adventurous little penguin swam all the way across the Tasman Sea from New Zealand to Australia, where it was nursed back to health.
The Fiordland penguin traveled over 1,500 miles to Kennet River in Australia, where Melbourne Zoo's Marine Response Unit discovered it, struggling and underweight. Footage from the Melbourne Zoo shows the penguin being nursed back to health by Zoos Victoria and Phillip Island Nature Parks. The penguin stayed there for several weeks, from July 10th till August 2nd. After slowly being reintroduced to the water, it was released back into the wild on September 4th. According to Dr. Michael Lynch, Melbourne Zoo's head of veterinary services, while the species' natural behavior is to forage for food over long distances, it's unclear why the penguin traveled all the way to Australia. He added that he's hopeful the penguin will find its way back to New Zealand. The Penguin Foundation also gave the little bird a shout out on Facebook, wishing it safe travels home.
Up next, constellations composed entirely of flowers. Find out how many were needed to bring the starry skies to planet Earth, and how far back the history of chrysanthemums date to. That and more after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Distant galaxies and stars appearing in the form of flowers. These days in Kiev there is an exhibition of chrysanthemums on the theme of constellations. NTD's Ukraine correspondent brings us the story.
The exhibition of chrysanthemums has been opened in Kiev. About 20,000 flowers were used to create colorful compositions.
For example, the whale constellation, it's considered to be autumnal because it is best seen this time of year. And these are the twins. The constellation resembles two human figures whose heads are the brightest stars Castor and Pollux. Here is the constellation of the Dragon, one of the largest. It's located in the northern hemisphere of the starry sky. There are also the constellations of the Golden Fish and Flying Fish, which are visible to the naked eye, and the constellation Hunting Dogs, which according to legend protects the hunter Orion from the angry bull Taurus. The exhibition is gorgeous. Autumn has come, but the mood is very good because look, what a beauty! People have done this for us and it's wonderful. Let everyone come. Very good compositions. For children, it is interesting. This is a great place to take a selfie.
Very nice figures, very interesting, just super cool.
Thought to originate from China, the first mention of chrysanthemums appeared in 551 BC in a description of the imperial garden. Later, chrysanthemums became popular in Japan, where they have been cultivated since the 4th century AD. It wasn't until the 17th century that these plants came to Europe. The chrysanthemum exhibition is the last flower event at Kiev's Singing Field this year. It's open now till October 27th.
And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.